Hey everyone, my name is Joe and I'm the Kosher Ninja. We're talking about my attempt last year to hike the Shvil Israel, or Israel National Trail, from one end of Israel in Kibbutz Dan, actually from Mount Hermon, all the way down to Eilat in the south. And we're talking about how I fared, how that worked out for me, and also answering some of the questions that you guys have asked and that I was asked along the Shvil, and also some other questions that I thought you might just be interested in. I'm so glad that you've stopped by, and while you're here, don't forget to subscribe and check out some of my videos from the Shvil. But right now, let's get down to some of those questions. And yes, we are still in the greenhouse, as you can see. I hope we've solved the clanging problem. That clanging vent shouldn't be clanging anymore today. And there is a little bit of background noise. I hope that's not too disturbing, so sorry about that. It can't really be helped. But it is lovely in here. It's about 40 to 50 degrees warmer than it is on the other side. And it's nice and toasty. And so I hope you love this background while we talk about the Shvil. I had a lot of questions about hiking solo and about whether I felt alone, whether I met a lot of people, was I scared, what about security? So let's answer some of those right now. First of all, I really loved hiking it solo. I had company when I wanted it most of the time, and other times when I wanted to be alone, I could be alone. So I didn't really feel alone. In the desert, I did feel alone in the world, but in a good way. It was just amazing to sort of be in the desert, to not hear or see anybody else, and to really just feel like you were the only person in the universe. And in the north, I did not actually feel alone at all. If there weren't any people within sort of eyesight, there was a highway in eyesight or a town in eyesight or some kind of sign of life and civilization. In the north, I don't think I probably went a day on the Shvil without seeing somebody, at least one other hiker. And yes, there were a lot of other people hiking it solo. I was actually surprised how many other people were hiking it solo. There was a lot of groups of two, buddies of two, but also a surprising number of people hiking it solo. So now a lot of those people were day hikers, so they weren't necessarily hiking the whole Shvil. But yeah, it was really nice to see that there was other people out there who were also going solo. In terms of meeting people, I did meet people. I hiked with some of the other solo hikers and with some of the buddies, like the duo pairs out there. I thought there would be a lot more people on the Shvil. I thought I would be meeting a lot more people. So that was a little bit of a surprise to me. But it was good. It was a nice balance. There was always somebody there, so I knew I wasn't alone out there, but it was also quiet. It didn't feel like it was overrun by hikers. So the other aspect of this was, what about being scared and security? So I told you in one of my other Q&As that somebody had asked about my scariest moment, and I said that was the night that I slept out on top of Kiryat Shmona. The scariest part of that was my fear that my tarp was going to blow away, and I had that fear quite a few nights. There was another situation which was kind of odd, that this would be more scary. You'd think that I'd be more scared where I was alone. There was one night on Yom Kippur where I was in a campground, and the campground was crowded with people just sort of taking advantage of the holiday to go camping. and they were very loud, very loud. It's not that I was so much scared of the people. I was annoyed with the loudness. I was scared. I did see the backside of a wild boar, a large wild boar. It was probably the size of a small cow, run sort of away from my direction, and it wasn't very far from me, like 15 to 20 meters maybe. So I guess there was nothing to be afraid of because there were so many people and they were so loud. But at the same time, it seems to be that the wildlife knows when there's people around, there's food to be had. So it was interesting, the kind of things that had me a little bit scared. And I did wake up in the middle of that night to somebody walking by my campsite or through my, like right beside my tarp. And that kind of freaked me out. Like, why would you walk through my campsite? But I have to say that my tarp was very low profile and they probably didn't even know I was there. So I did get pretty grumpy with them. And I can't remember anymore if they apologized, but they didn't cut through my campsite again. So I don't know that really counts as a situation where I was really scared, but it was a little bit weird. I did feel a little bit uneasy about the possibility of camping out solo in the desert in particular. So, but I never did have to camp alone in the desert, so that was good. In the end, somebody always showed up, or the group of 8 took me back into town, and I was able to sleep at the Trail Angels again that night. So yeah, camping out in the desert wasn't a problem. I wasn't scared in the desert more than, I guess there's certain points where you're like halfway up a mountain and you have to climb a ladder. Yeah, that was kind of scary, having to think about, oh, I have to climb that ladder, and there's like, oh my goodness, 300, 400 meters of sheer drop below me. That was kind of scary, but especially when there was nobody around. But I almost think if there had been somebody around, I'm kind of glad that I was alone in those situations, because I think if somebody had been around, I could have sort of used those people as a crutch and sort of, gotten scared about it. Whereas I was alone, I was responsible for myself, I had decided to do this, I had to make my way through. So that was actually, it was scary, but it was also kind of empowering because I had no choice. I had to do this. And it wasn't that hard. It's just a ladder. It just happens to be 300 or 400 meters up in the air. So yeah. One of the other questions that I was asked was, and I answered in a previous video, was, did I ever want to quit? And I said yes, definitely, many times. So I guess the next logical question is, well, why didn't I? And actually, there's a lot of reasons that I didn't quit. Although I really did want to. The very first night, I was so close to quitting. But reason number one I didn't quit was because I wasn't on a holiday. This wasn't just, I'm out here for fun. I was on a mission, and I had told you guys I was going to do this, and I really wanted to show you this aspect of Israel as much as I could, as much as possible. So that was my main reason. I had a goal, and I was determined to not let you guys down, and also to not let myself down. Some days it literally was one day at a time. So I guess you might be wondering, what were the main times when I wanted to quit? Day one. Day one, when I got down from Mount Hermon, was trying to get ready to go to bed, I really was not sure at that point if I was going to continue. The other point that sticks in my mind is, there were a few points along the way where, because I was taking a break for other reasons, it was kind of like, a challenge that I had to overcome to sort of get back on the Shvil. So when I was staying in Jerusalem, when I stayed a few days at the Trail Angels in Après while I was waiting for a buddy to go into the desert with. So those were sort of times where I did have to kind of face the question a little bit, was I going to continue or not? But the main two places were day one and Sapir. So Sapir was, I'm not even sure what day that was. It was around day, I'm going to say 44 or something like that. I went to the grocery store. The day before, I had really had a rough time in the desert. And after learning all my lessons up in the north about dehydration and water and taking breaks, for some reason that day, getting to Sapir, I lost those lessons along the way somehow. And I ended up again severely dehydrated and really, really tired. And the trail angel, once they found out that I had actually walked all the way around the kibbutz and not actually gone in the back gate like I probably should have and would have if I'd been an Israeli, once they found out I did that, they told me, yeah, you really are a ninja. And I did that after I should have long ago stopped to eat some food and snacks and take a rest and drink some water. And I went ahead and did that anyways. So some days I was just downright stupid. But so that following day I was trying to decide what to do, whether I should take a 0 day. Well, I was definitely by that point taking a 0 day. Whether I should just stop, quit, get off the trail, maybe get back on for a couple of days or a day at the very end so that I could at least walk into Eilat. And that was pretty bad. That really felt like that really, I guess there was a couple of different things working at me then, because at that point I had been in the desert for a few days and I kind of felt tired of the desert. I sort of felt, I've done the desert now. I've been here for a few days. I really don't need to see more desert. So that was working on me, and then also just the sort of feeling of being tired and exhausted. And it was actually a pretty rough time because I really kind of felt like I was ready to give up. But then I went to the grocery store to try and buy some supplies for, assuming that I do go ahead for another day. And that's when I ran into my hiking buddies in the grocery store, and that just sort of encouraged me. They had started much earlier. They were doing that whole section to the next kibbutz, and which is actually not a kibbutz, it's a moshav, Tzofar, and it's about 7 kilometers from Sapir, and they were still doing that evening. So I decided, you know what, I can do that, because that was what I was going to do originally anyways that day. What my plan was to go to the grocery store in the morning, get some groceries, and go to Sapir. Go to Tzofar. But by the time I got around to it and everything, it just seemed like that wasn't going to happen, and it was late in the afternoon, and I was depressed. So when I actually ran into my buddies and they were still hiking to Tzofar that day, that just gave me that one little boost that I needed to keep going for that day. And that's all I needed, just that one day. And then the next morning, I could decide what I was going to do. And so the next morning, they were going to hike that next section, and they agreed that they'd hike with me. And so I finally decided, okay, yes, I will hike that next section. And that was the day that I put in all those kilometers, and actually they couldn't catch up with me at one point, or probably they could have I know they could have if they'd tried, but they didn't. And so that was the day that I just really felt good about myself. So yeah, right after I had wanted to quit. It's funny how these things work out. And then from then on, it just got easier. So I did take the next, after that next section, I did take a day off. So I had planned to take a 0 day in there, and then because I didn't take the 0 day in so far, so I did take that 0 day then, and that meant I had been on the Shvil for about, I think, 5 days for, whether it was 7 kilometers or 21 kilometers. And so it was really good to take a 0 day at that point, and on a positive note, and then come back to hit the Shvil a couple days later and go the rest of the way. So I did skip another pretty good chunk by taking that 0 day and coming back and meeting the Shvil at a different point. But it just gave me the boost I needed to do the last stretch. And yeah, so I did want to quit many times. But now, having done it, I actually want to go back and do it again, like I've told you. So in the end, definitely a positive thing. And when you have overcome those situations where you really feel like you want to quit, but you do it anyways, and you overcome and you do much better, you show yourself that you really can do it. Those are just the best moments. So I really recommend that to people. If you have something that you feel like you want to quit, you don't feel like you can do it, just kind of push through, even if it's 1 day at a time, 1 step at a time. Just do it, and then once you've actually accomplished it, it's an amazing feeling. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, give me a thumbs up and subscribe and share this video with your friends. And if you have other questions and comments that I still haven't answered, leave them in the comments down below, and we'll get back to them. And if you've ever hiked in Israel, on the Shvil Israel, or anywhere else, please tell me about it in the comments down below. I'd love to hear about it. And until next time, thanks for watching, and shalom, eh?